I have a life-ruining secret that I need to share nonchalantly. I like Five Nights at Freddy's. It's kind of been an obsession for most of my childhood up until now. It started with the release of FNAF 4, Markiplier was shocked by the bite of 87, and PewDiePie wasn't. And right around here, at the age of 9 years old, I watched a video that would change my life forever. Top 10 facts about the cupcake.
And fact number 7 is that the cupcake has somewhat of an unofficial name dubbed by the fan community, and his name is Carl.
And just like that, my childhood was over. Goodbye normal childhood, hello getting bullied. And for the next 9 years, I've been super into Five Nights at Freddy's. Always watching the new Game Theory, branching out to other YouTubers because Game Theory jumped off the deep end. Hell, I even edited for a FNAF channel. Hi Shy Crow. But what am I getting at here? Why am I telling you all this? I've been in the FNAF community for half of my life. Sad, I know, but I've seen it all. I can consider myself very knowledgeable about the FNAF lore. And so I'm gonna get on my pedestal and talk about the topic of this video with the utmost authority. Not really, but what is the topic of this video? It all started 8 months ago when The Shy Crow asked me to edit a video about the then upcoming FNAF movie, and whether or not the rumored PG-13 rating would work. And something about this video planted a seed that would stick with me. Does FNAF need Gore to be scary? In general, I've seen a lot of discussion on the topic. On Twitter, on YouTube, on a third thing, I don't really use anything else. And a lot of the people talking about it like to compare the games to the popular fan projects known as FNAF VHS. For those out of the loop, FNAF VHS is a subgenre of analog horror focusing on adaptations of the FNAF games in the form of VHS tapes. Starting with the FNAF tapes from a disgraced member of the FNAF fandom Squimpus McGrimpus. I'm not gonna say why he's disgraced, you can look that up. Squimpus' series was incredibly influential. I mean, it created the genre and inspired tons of creators to make genuinely amazing analog horror films. FNAF VHS is some of the best analog horror out there, and I'm not joking. The FNAF tapes by Squimpus even inspired a full remake by Baddington, which I'll be focusing on because I don't want to talk about disgraced member of the FNAF fandom Squimpus McGrimpus anymore. Baddington's tapes do a great job of showing the more human side of FNAF, letting the missing kids reflect on their situation and talk about how awful being stuffed in an animatronic suit actually is. It creates a darker, more real atmosphere that isn't really touched on in the real FNAF games. And another thing not being touched on in real FNAF, blood. God forbid FNAF shows a drop of blood. In the first Baddington tape, we see someone disassembling Freddy for maintenance, and when they take off his torso, that child or something. It being a fan project and not having to weigh itself down to any previous standards for the franchise is able to push that envelope forward, and Baddington doesn't have to worry about upsetting their kid audience, because they don't have one. And through that, they're able to be a lot more gruesome in its depictions of the events of FNAF than actual FNAF. Or is it? With the popularity of FNAF VHS, I think a lot of people forget how gruesome old FNAF is. Surely it got a bit tamer as time went on and new games came out, but old FNAF had a good amount of darker moments and themes. Let's go through some of it, starting with FNAF 1. FNAF 1 was the start of the series, and therefore Scott didn't know this would be a whole franchise, one that would become progressively more targeted towards kids as time went on. And because of that, we get this game over screen that you would most likely not see today. If I stuff you into an animatronic suit, and the only thing that comes that's left of you is your eyeball, you're probably dead. This is the first time we see anything close to Gore in FNAF, and it goes pretty hard. For the franchise's standards, but still. Even the concept of stuffing kids into an animatronic suit is incredibly brutal, even if it's not shown on screen for most of the games. But if you do want something from the games that is shown on screen, in FNAF 2, if you die and get really lucky, you can activate a minigame known as Take Cake to the Children, where you play as fan favorite character, Freddy giving cake to kids. If you do good and not lose immediately, you can see this scene play out. But it's only like 8 bits, so it's not really that bad. You can't really make out any fine details. Is that a purple man stabbing a small child? Probably not. But if you want something with more pixels, okay. Springtrap is a rotten old man who has been locked in an animatronic suit for 30 years. He's also dead. He's also so very dead. But most of the time you don't really see that little British chap inside the suit. Except if you get really lucky. You can get some secret screens showing a little purple alien trying to get out. And also, while personally not worse than Springtrap, I would like to also mention the Bite of 83. I always thought this scene was a lot worse than it actually is because I watched this animation as a kid and it scarred me and changed my perception of the Bite of 83 forever. Yeah. So we have established that old FNAF has its more explicit dark moments. But it's kind of a shame a lot of that is lost in newer FNAF. Surely this video doesn't have some twist about how modern FNAF is just as bad or something. For clarity, I will draw the line of what modern FNAF is at the transition between Scott Cawthon solo developing games and bringing on Steel Wool Studios. Or simply put, anything after Ultimate Custom Night. Starting with Help Wanted 1, we can collect cassette tapes which give us more information about the development of the game we're playing. In particular, they focus on a game tester named Jeremy who gets taken over by an AI and cuts off his face with a piece of office equipment. That's pretty dark, but how about we talk about something that's debatably darker? The book. Sticking with just the Tales from the Pizzaplex books, we got Alone Together, a story about a 7th grader who is really good at carpentry, who learns about the Mechanical Turk, a real-life chess robot built in 1770 that was so good at what it did that it stumped chess grandmasters. Except the Mechanical Turk wasn't mechanical, there was a real person controlling it. The kid, in an attempt to recreate this pretty cool illusion, finds out he's too good at carpentry, and ends up trapping himself in the Turk and suffocates to death. How about the epilogues? It follows a Freddy Fazbear Pizza employee handling a shipment of animatronics, one out of place and not a part of the shipment. So the employee takes it home to start tinkering on it. He finds out it follows his commands, so he uses it to be lazy and do his job for him. He gives it the command to help him disassemble some animatronic endoskeletons, but the animatronic makes the simple mistake of thinking the employee is an endoskeleton. You know, a simple mistake really. But I know what you're saying. Jenny, I'm at the bottom of the Aphantasia scale. I can't see that, and you would be correct. A lot of recent FNAF moments like this tend to be off screen. And that's true. Until it isn't. Remember Springtrap? He's still here, in his full glory. Maybe more than his full glory. It looks like Bill has been mewing, goddamn. And if we want to get jiggy with a theory crafting, that's not Springtrap, that's the Mimic! Which would make this ambiguous blob of human origin not a man trapped in an animatronic suit, but a man being worn as an animatronic suit. Because in reality, modern day FNAF is arguably worse than old FNAF. In my opinion, the worst thing old FNAF introduced was either Springtrap or Mike getting scooped and being worn as an animatronic suit. And in the modern era, we have both of these. On top of stuff from the novels like the kid being suffocated in a chess robot. But one thing I have trouble answering is why? Why is this such a popular viewpoint? Okay, well, first off, no one's reading the books, let's be real. I didn't even do that for the video. But if you wanted me to, people just straight up don't know that stuff happens in the books, so it's out of their radar when it comes to this discussion. Second, a lot of people experienced this game when they were like 10. So yeah, an eyeball falling out of a suit is gonna seem a lot worse than what they throw at us today. Even though if people thought logically about it, they would realize that's kind of goofy. That's not how the human brain works though. Nostalgia clouds our views and captures these emotions even though they don't hold up today. And also one last thing, I think a lot of people have some misplaced anger when it comes to the modern day FNAF. Specifically, they get FNAF having gore and FNAF being scary mixed up, because these aren't really synonymous. And that brings up a bigger conversation. Does horror in general need gore and or blood to be scary? Let's look at one of my favorite pieces of horror. Radar by Studio Ure and directed by Lyra Horrors. Spoilers, by the way. Being unbiased, possibly one of the best analog horrors out there. Don't even try to argue. The reason why I love Radar so much is that despite having a little blood, and I mean a little, and while implying that gross stuff and explicit stuff happens, it never shows it. The real horror of Radar is not what it shows, but the haunting story behind it. Also, faces a little creepy. Ow! But that's not to say that something like Gore can't be used really well. I know for sure that in the new Walton Files, and spoilers for the Walton Files by the way, that scene with Susan and the Bond animatronic would not have been as cool if they didn't show Bond playing with Susan's face like a Rubik's Cube. And that scene with Susan and the other Bond is just so grim when you see Susan disfigured and with a less than not broken neck. It added so much dread to the already tough scene. So does FNAF need Gore to be scary? Not really. It never really had that much of it, at least not on screen. I don't think it ever needed it anyways. FNAF works fine when you don't see everything. Just like Radar, it's the implications of something really bad happening. You can't look me dead in the eye and say that kids being stuffed in animatronic suits where they're stuck in for 40 years isn't terrifying. You would be lying. To end this off, old FNAF had Gore, new FNAF has Gore, FNAF in general doesn't need to show any of it to be scary, and that also goes for all horror as well. Watch Radar, and hey, I forgot to record this, I'm recording this later. Thank you so much to Quinnamin for making these amazing character stills. Get used to seeing these forever. They're so cool, I don't think I could ever stop using them. He's a fellow YouTuber, so go over and subscribe to them now. And also, subscribe to me maybe, and check out my Discord, it's free for anyone to join. And with that, I'm signing off.